Hello and welcome. And I can't even start because we've already started this conversation. I'm so excited. I have Ruby Fremon here, and honestly, I've been aware of Ruby's work for years now. I became a coach back in 2013, and I've seen, the people that were really pioneering and really starting off before coaching became trendy. And a lot of us are also seeing what's going on in the field. And it's just so great that I get to connect with more and more thought leaders and true people in their integrity, recognizing and seeing what's happening. And before we push record, like Ruby and I were like talking, like we should just start pushing record because this conversation is too good to pass. So thank you, Ruby, for being here. And I'm so excited to continue to dive into what we are talking about behind the scenes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to see where this conversation flows.
Yes. So Bud and I met Ruby in Palm Springs at Dr. Brett Jones. He had like a day retreat and he invited me to go, and we met there, and I was like, oh my God, I've definitely, like I said, I've known you for years. I've seen your work, and it's amazing to see the evolution that you've created. And when I was researching for this podcast, I even found out more why we're new best friends, because before this coaching world that you dove into, I too was also in the music industry, at festivals and raves, and I was blogging about them and creating them. And I know you have a very similar background, creating and producing events. And then there's an awakening that happened for you that really brought you into this path of where you are today. So I'd love for you just to give a little like Cliff Notes version of your journey that really brought you to this space.
Yeah, so the Cliff Notes version is, yes, before this, I was working in nightlife, but I had always um, dealt with this feeling of unworthiness and also being unheard and being shunned for speaking my voice. I was raised Punjabi Sikh, and my parents did their best, but I was not encouraged to speak my truth. And anytime I spoke my truth growing up, I was shunned for it or punished for it or told not to do it because it wouldn't be accepted. And so by the time I got into nightlife in my 20s, I had already cultivated a habit of masking and numbing out. And while I worked in nightlife, I was introduced to recreational drugs. Prior to that, I had only drank a lot of alcohol and smoked a lot of weed. But here I was introduced to substances like cocaine, MDMA, and soon enough I became addicted to cocaine. And for me, it represented power. It also offered me I guess what I thought I needed in order to do the job that I was doing, because in reality, it was exhausting me. It was exhausting my energy fields, but I didn't know it. And so I would always keep myself in a certain state in order to work the way that I was working and be around the people that I was being around. Now, I loved, some of those days were the best days of my life. And it was also
Totally.
like some of the darkest days of my life. And I was in an abusive relationship for years. And when I ended that, that's when I found myself on my like fall to the knees moment in 2012, when I really, for the first time, saw the pattern in my life. Like, wow, I keep ending up in this place where I feel devastated, where I feel like everything is going against me, where I'm blaming other people. It was almost like, it felt like an out of body experience where I was looking at myself and observing and noticing how, wow, like I'm always blaming other people, things, experiences, circumstances. And in reality, what got me to this place, on the floor, ending a 4.5-year abusive relationship, an addict and didn't know it, what got me to that place was an accumulation of my own choices and decisions. Like no one held me at gunpoint and forced me to be in this relationship. No one forced me to drink and do drugs and surround myself with toxic people. No one forced me to do any of these things. I did these things. And it was that realization that really sparked my journey into inwards, really, getting to know myself for the first time, working through the beliefs that I'd picked up my entire life, to get back to my truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a journey that I'm still on, that I'm deeply devoted to, that I see as a lifelong journey, but it's one that's been amazing because through it has birthed my real true purpose and the work that I do today, as well as this life that I am now experiencing externally.
Mm-hmm.
My husband, my relationship with him, my new friends, my new life, how night and day
Mm-hmm.
this all seems,
Mm-hmm.
so different. But it was really that realization of like, oh shit, I did this.
Yeah.
And taking ownership for that. And then also taking responsibility for the fact that I have the power to change.
Right. And I think when we get into that space, because I had a very similar thing, I was abusing MDMA like every week because I was like, oh, I wasn't, alcohol to me was not taboo in my family growing up Italian. So it was like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like a thrill. And even to this day, I rarely drink alcohol, but MDMA was fresh. And that's what helped me find God at the first time I ever did MDMA. And helped me find myself because I had all this depression and all this trauma and all these things. But then we abused it. I abused it. And that was a period where there was a lot of abuse. Like the scene was hot. The scene was hot because I was a music journalist in the house music industry from 2010 to about 2014. And it was a hot time that everyone was abusing. And the thing is like when you're in those states, everyone around you who's also in those states, there's all of our dark shit comes up and our field is open. So we're absorbing a lot of things that aren't even ours, especially cocaine. Cocaine is something that breaks down those barriers and that dense energy comes in, which is why I think a huge chunk of us had that breakdown in 2012. And a huge chunk of us really woke up and was like, wow, I have to reassess and reevaluate because this is not in alignment with my truth.
Right. Totally. And it's like, I think that there's so many of us that are on this journey and so many of us that have similar paths and so many of us that have similar timelines. And also timelines that differ just a little bit,
Right.
because it really comes down to, are we willing to face that truth? Because it can be a pretty ugly truth to face. Like for me to really look at my life and be like, shit, I did this and I'm continuing to do this. And the only reason I'm in this situation is because of me. That takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery, especially when you're so used to pointing the finger and blaming your circumstances, right?
Definitely.
And now we get to be on this path of self-discovery, which also allows us to support others on their path to self-discovery in different ways with our own unique gifts.
Yeah, and I think that's what we have to, I think that's the medicine, is understanding like the experience that we went through, how there's no accident to it either, because this is how you are going to be of service. This is how you can be more compassionate. And to me, that's what true leadership is. It's about how can you be of service to those who've been where you once were, who, it doesn't matter what the situation looks like. It can be everything from, relationships to business to whatever. All of it is about, we are here to serve people that were where we once were, because that connection is what is needed for us to continue to be part of the evolution of humanity.
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't have said that better myself. We're all contributing to that evolution in our own ways. And so much of that has to do with our journeys, where we've been, what we've acquired through where we've been. There's nothing that I regret in my life. Nothing. Like even some of the ugliest choices and decisions, I am so grateful for. I'm so grateful for everyone who came into my path, no matter how much trauma was created from those relationships. I'm so grateful because all of that gifted me with to be who I am today, and without having gone on this path, I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing today. I wouldn't have uncovered what I'm really truly meant to do. I wouldn't have uncovered my voice.
Right. And I think the biggest thing we have to do is to really drop that shame, because
Oh, for
those
sure.
are the stories that hold us back from fully stepping into our authentic power. Those are the stories that keep our truth dimmed. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there's still a veil over our truth because we're still ashamed. And of course, that can all trigger back to your inner child. And when did you first feel ashamed from your developmental ages? And I think that's what a lot of people have to understand too, is that if you're struggling with speaking your truth or sharing your truth online or in your business, it's really critical to do that deep inner child work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, for me, shame was something I carried in my childhood. But when I got to this point in my life in 2012, I actually started blogging anonymously um, on my journey very early on, mostly because I wanted to hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if I put it on the internet, then I have to do it. But I created this anonymous blog on Tumblr. Anyone remember Tumblr?
Oh, the OG days. Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
OG days.
And I was sharing really openly, and for me it provided a platform for me to practice leaning into my voice. And the feeling that I had from that release was far greater than the feeling that I experienced with shame. And so that's actually what helped me work through my shame, was just using my voice and experiencing the freedom that comes from it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I used my voice, the more I was shedding my shame. And because I realized that that was creating a connection point for people who were reading my stuff. I eventually got brave enough to share it on Facebook, and I was hearing from some of like the world's biggest DJs and producers that I was doing their shows for, like, would DM me and say, "Hey, I'm going through the same thing. Like, thank you so much for putting a
Mm-hmm.
voice to this." And I realized, like, number one, I'm not alone. Number two, like, all it takes is one person to share, and that's what can start dropping the shame for many other people. And so for me, I don't want to say it was like easy to drop the shame, but it kind of was, because I chose to lean in the direction of expressing myself.
So it's as
Because
soon as you make that decision, I think
yeah,
that's what you have to really understand, everyone, is like, as soon as you make that decision and you take the conscious action to do it, it's easier. It's our heads that tell us it's more complicated than it is.
well, it's our old programs,
Right.
right? For whatever reason, maybe your parents used to shame you for speaking your truth or speaking up. And we create these programs. I mean, even now to this day, I'm not perfect. I don't, what is perfection anyways?
Way
But
to
there are
be
times,
human. Way to be
yeah.
human.
But like, there are times when I fuck up, and I'll publicly like share, oh, I fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's because I think at the end of the day, especially with social media being what it is, we're all craving the human side of things. We're all craving authenticity. We're all craving to connect with each other. And we cannot connect with each other if we're going to be wearing masks and facades and posturing ourselves to be perceived in a certain way. Like, the only way that we can connect with another human being is when we let ourselves be seen and we let them see themselves in us, right? Like, if you think about, to our listeners, if you think about people that you feel instantly connected to on social media, and think about what was that post that made you instantly connect to them, it was most likely a post where they were really speaking their truth, and
Mm-hmm.
it was super raw and real,
Mm-hmm.
because that's them offering an opportunity for them to see, to be seen, for you to
Mm-hmm.
actually see them, and through that you get to connect with them. And so for me, this is the very foundation of my business and the work that I do, and I choose to show up in this way day in and day out, even if it makes me look less of an expert,
Mm-hmm.
or less of, I don't even know, less of a leader. um,
But you're in your integrity.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm connecting with other human beings. Like, that's what
Mm-hmm.
matters.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, lately I've been pretty much exposing myself speaking my truth on how I got stuck in the trap of the chasing is the best way to say, chasing the status in the coaching industry, because
The shiny people.
Yeah, of course.
I just did a podcast episode on that. The shiny people
with the blue check mark next to your name.
Yes.
Right? So, and you know, after working on my last plant medicine ceremony with Peyote, it was very, very, very clear for me to really step into my power, and I have to be also aware of the people I surround myself with. And am I comparing myself to them? And am I dimming my light because of where they're at, even though I've really seen that they're out of their integrity? Like these were close friends, who they were before they got like Instagram famous and where they are now. It was so out of alignment. And that wasn't something that I wanted to do. But I also saw that that was a huge trigger of my sacral and like solar plexus development stage. So like puberty into high school, of wanting to be accepted. So it was a really good opportunity for me to continue to go back to my childhood, my teenage years, and to see like where I did my best to try to fit in, but still not be seen or heard. And that's what I was caught in, you know. I was overcharging prices because I was, you know, that's what everyone else was doing, trying to fit in. And then I realized it's actually not in integrity with my mission and my values and my whole purpose as to why I do. And so as soon as I spoke up and started speaking about how the coaching industry has been infiltrated, the amount of response that came from people that have been scammed by coaches has been through the roof. And it's a conversation that I refuse to not talk about. Yeah. Because otherwise I wouldn't be in my integrity of speaking my truth and honoring what I value, because we're here to be of service. People are coming to us in their most vulnerable spaces, and a lot of people have taken advantage of that vulnerability.
For sure. For sure. A lot of people are doing their best to target that vulnerability and catch people at their lowest points and take advantage of them. And it's really sad to see this happening in the space that's meant to be one that is truly of service and one that is truly supportive. And at the same time, it's just a demonstration of people who are trying to people who are claiming to support you with the work while not having gone through the work themselves.
Of course.
Really. And it's like, what people don't understand is I didn't do the work and then get a certificate and then start coaching and forget all about the work. No, as I can only take my clients as deep as I'm willing to go. So for me, my journey is always the priority. I will always prioritize my own growth, my own spiritual development, personal development, emotional growth before my clients. I put that first as my priority. It's a
responsibility.
Right. In order to continue holding space for the people that I serve. It's my divine responsibility, it's my divine duty to do so.
Definitely. Yeah. And I just think everyone's bullshit meters are getting stronger. And, you know, the more that we're doing the work, the more we're waking up to what's actually feels aligned. And I think that's the gift of 2020, because to me, it's 2020 crystal vision. And so we're seeing the veils right now, and we have the power to pierce through them and to drop them. So this is a huge part of, a non-negotiable that I'm seeing with my own business and even the people I have on my podcast.
Yeah, I agree. It's gone are the days of, trying to be better than, you know, and yes, there are still a lot of people who are fighting that fight, like trying to be better than X, Y, and Z, trying to do better than X, Y, and Z, trying to position myself better as X, Y, and Z. People see right through that. Now it's the time when our conscious collective really seeks to rise together and see each other and connect with each other. I mean, as great as social media is, I talk about this all the time, social media is so great. It's a gift and it's a crutch, right? It's a crutch because we can manipulate how we're being perceived with so much more ease, but it's also a gift because we can connect with people if we use it with intention. And so now is the time for us to rise, you know, as the leaders that we're here to be, and to be responsible with how we're showing up. And that starts by taking responsibility for our own lives, for our own decisions, for the way in which we're showing up.
Yeah, and it's that huge reframe that we have to really understand, because yes, social media is shifting, and I have my degree in marketing, so I've been studying this stuff for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, social media is shifting, but I think what's going to keep the momentum of this gift and this technology is speaking and sharing from that space of integrity, because I think we've gotten so caught up. And I saw Gary Vee post this the other day. It's like, post, like, it doesn't matter what your feed looks like. You know, I think so many of us are caught up in that, the appearance.
Yes.
But it's more so about like, what is the medicine you're sharing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
it's the potency of what you're sharing. It's the potency of what you have to offer, and the potency of your words and your presence.
Yes.
You know, like the stuff you can't fucking filter.
Right.
Oops, I just said the F word. Was I allowed to say that?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I usually ask that at the beginning, and I was like, shit, that just slipped out.
Oh no, you know me. I was raised by Italian New Yorkers, so yeah, no, definitely. I love that. See, that's the thing. Like, I want my space here to be where people can like be authentically themselves,
right?
You know?
Of
and
course.
their integrity. To me, my values are integrity. Like, that's like my main value is how can I be in integrity and be authentic, and be genuine. Like, those are my 3 main values of my business.
This is why we like each other. My main values are like authenticity. Well, my number 1 is integrity, then authenticity and connection.
Yes.
And by connection, I mean like connection with self first, so that you can connect with others. But yeah, there's a real loss of integrity in our space, in our world. Really.
So I want to talk about that, because I think what can help us really, it's not the end all be all if you're out of that integrity. I think it's incredibly important for you to know when to take a step back.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know for me, going to Bali, I'm restructuring my whole business so that I can continue to be in my integrity. So yes, I'm going to Bali to write my book, but yes, I'm also going to refine my business plan and my model. And I think that's really important for us to embrace and understand, because as we evolve, so too does our business. And so we can, again, get caught up in, oh my God, I need to post this, or like, oh my God, I need to do this. But if you're out of that integrity, your audience is going to feel it.
Yep. And we feel it. You know, I think that it's important to also mention that we feel that. Like, maybe we hear the word alignment thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? To me, it's a feeling. To me, it's like, imagine you have an internal alarm system and the alarm goes off. It's that kind of feeling. And so you're anxious, you feel like you're missing something, you feel unfulfilled, you feel unhappy, but you can't quite put your
imbalanced. You feel imbalanced.
Right. Like stuff isn't really where it needs to be. Well, there's something in your life, like you're showing up out of integrity in some way, shape, or form, and it's up to you to play detective and find out where that is. You know, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. There have definitely been moments in my journey with this business as a coach where I've shown up with a lack of integrity. But the key is to have that awareness.
And how fast can you realign?
Exactly.
To that value?
Are you willing to see it? Number 1, are you willing to own it? Number 2, and then are you willing to do something about it? Number 3. And sometimes the third part is the hardest part, because doing something about it can often mean going against the grain, like doing something that no one else is doing. And that's pretty much been how I've built my entire business. Like, I've done things how I've been recommended not to do things. Like, I've been told, don't do things that way, it's not going to work. And I'm like, well, fuck it. Like, this is what feels good for me. This is what feels aligned for me. This is what feels in integrity for me. And at the end of the day, like, I didn't choose to be an entrepreneur to fucking hate my business in my life. Like, let's just be real. I became a purpose-driven entrepreneur to serve, to feel, to create that fulfillment in my life, to create freedom in my life, and to really support this vision that I have. And so I'm going to make sure that I do everything in my power to remain in alignment, even if that means course correcting time and time again.
Mm-hmm. And I think that takes that revisiting has to be a non-negotiable.
Yes.
Because that's it's like a check-in, you know. And
Yes.
so it's really important to get that foundation set first of what is it that you're doing, and of course it
Yep.
evolves.
Yep.
But like if you want to have a business, you have to get these pieces together. Otherwise, it's just a hobby that you're doing, and you know
Preach it.
you have to come with a structure to create, and then when you have that structure, the content will flow.
Yes. Yes. And that structure begins with structure within.
Yes.
Like you can, and if you don't have let's just put it this way, if you don't have your shit together, you're going to build a business, a movement,
A shitty business.
right, on top of a pile of shit,
Yeah.
which is eventually going to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to get your house in order first, you
Yep.
know, and people always talk about clarity. Well, it's like the clarity starts within. The clarity starts with creating that alignment within yourself, getting clear on what you value, what's important to you, and is what you're creating aligned with those values.
Yep.
You know, like there's been, for me, you know, this whole like scale, let's get bigger, let's go bigger. For me, I tried that and I was like, but what do I value? I value connection and I value intimacy. And so for me, it was like getting rid of a lot of offers in my business that weren't in integrity because they weren't aligned with my actual values, and bringing it back in to keep my business one that feels super intimate. And so it's just these constant little course corrections and pivots that I create to remain in alignment. Because like you said, like we evolve our businesses with us, you know, as we evolve. So as we continue to evolve, our business and our movement and our message is going to continue to change, and that's okay. We get to do that, and our movement becomes stronger because of it, because we're always aiming to be in integrity.
Yes. And so I would love to hear, like, what are some of the techniques that you work with to help you realign and to reassess and to reevaluate, or to patch holes in structures or little cracks in the structure to make it solid again?
Yeah, for me, it's always so I do this multiple times a year where I'll look at everything I'm doing and I take an audit. Like, here's everything that I'm doing. And what by everything, I mean programs, offers, content, types of content that I'm creating, and the information that I'm putting out there. So I'll look at all of that. And I will literally have my values written on a piece of paper right next to me as I'm writing out this list of everything that I'm doing. And then I go through each item one by one and ensure that they're aligned with my values. If I see something that is not aligned with my values, I will either shift it or I will remove it, like release it. Shifting it sometimes just means, okay, how can I make this align with all of my values? What can I do to just shift it or alter it or edit it? And then releasing it is like, okay, you know what? This chapter is now complete, and I can release this. And in releasing it, I'm going to remain in integrity with what I'm creating. And so it's just having that regular audit. I do this probably in reality twice a year for sure, sometimes 3 times a year, but twice a year for sure, beginning of the year and then towards the fall, as I'm prepping for the following year. And I'll do it sometimes in the middle when I'm feeling that, like, if there's a misalignment, I'll be like, okay, I need to look at everything that I'm doing and see. And that really, like, so much of that really includes the messaging. Like you were saying, you were talking about the people you bring on your podcast. Like, even that, I remember in year 1, there was people that I brought on the podcast that I only brought on because, for whatever stupid fucking reason, like they were going to put me on their podcast, or they had a big name,
Totally.
right? Or some promise was made. And I was like, man, that was so out of integrity. And now I bring on people that I really genuinely like.
Me too. Yeah, because I value this space, and again, like that the connection that I have with a guest is important as well. in terms of the medicine that comes through from this
For
conversation
sure.
and how it's going to impact my audience. It's
Right.
also like I want to make sure that I'm in my integrity and I can authentically be myself and not feel like I have to water down myself
Yep.
or
Yeah.
limit myself in any way. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah. And
that's
serve your audience, right?
yes,
Like to
exactly.
really serve your audience, we need to, for the podcast, for example, we need to always keep that in mind. Like this is to serve the audience. So how am I in service to my audience, to my community, if I'm bringing people on that I don't genuinely love?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think another thing, if you're someone that's listening and you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, I think it's so important to have that sabbatical away.
Oh my
Um,
God, yes.
I took a 4-month social media sabbatical over the summer, and I needed that more than anything. The only reason why I went back on social media was because my best friend had a baby and she lived in Canada, and it was the only way I was going to see the baby. But those 4 months really helped me realign and reassess, and that was where I had the clarity of
Mm-hmm.
the discernment as to who I bring on the podcast and the information I share and reevaluating my pillars. So I think it's really important that, especially if you're feeling like you're in the loop of like, oh my God, like my shit's not being received well, or I'm stuck in this like trap of like create, even though it doesn't feel very in alignment. I think it's really important for you to take that break, to not be infiltrated by everyone else's shit on social media,
Mm-hmm.
and to come back to you, because we have become so increasingly sensitive as it is. And if you are someone of service, it's like you're most likely a sensitive person as it is, because you have to feel into the person that you're here to serve. And it's so important to energetically check yourself often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And we can only do that when we turn down the noise around us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you listening who are like, 4 months, Sabrina, you're crazy. You can also take mini breaks, you
A
know, like
week.
right.
Yeah.
Take a week off, or devote yourself to taking every weekend off.
Mm-hmm.
Like be consistent with it.
Mm-hmm.
Go offline at a certain hour every night. You know,
Mm-hmm.
don't be plugged in all the time. Put your phone
Mm-hmm.
on do not disturb.
Mm-hmm.
Turn your phone off.
And the key is to delete the app, for
Yes.
the weekend. Because
Yeah,
then you don't have that, like, I mean, it's crazy, but we've become addicted to it. I think we're addicted to the dopamine hits. I think we're
for
connected
sure.
to, just the scroll, like checking out in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I would definitely suggest if you're someone there, like delete the app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much clarity can come through when you take a break,
Mm-hmm.
because that offers you the space within yourself, to connect with yourself without this outside noise, without all of this consumption of messages, of posts, of videos, of other people's shit, of other people's energy, of other people's presence, so that you can tune into what's actually really important for you, what's actually your true voice.
It's how you
What
conquer the comparison paralysis.
Yes, for sure. It's the
Mhm.
only way.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think as we become more increasingly sensitive, because we've been devoted to doing the work, and when you do the work, you become more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
These are going to have to be truly non-negotiables,
Yep.
because this whole technology shit is still new compared to humanity,
I
and
know.
and so we're still understanding the kinks of it. Like it's still a very developmental time of,
Mm-hmm.
because we have our whole lives ahead of us, and this technology isn't going anywhere.
Yep.
So we need to start working on the systems and what works for us, understanding that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get to do that. You know, we get to
Yes.
create these boundaries for ourselves. I feel
Yes.
blessed because I grew up without internet, and I grew up without cell phones, and I grew up with, I'm dating myself, but I feel blessed that I had that experience, because I
Totally.
understand that, hey, life is possible without this shit. Life is possible without a cell phone. Like people call and leave a message on your answering machine, and it can take you maybe a whole day to get back to them, maybe a couple of days. And that's cool. Like life doesn't stop. You just keep going. And now we live in the era of FOMO, where people feel like if I'm not online, I'm going to become insignificant. And it's like, you're
Irrelevant.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not
Mhm.
true. That's completely false. You know,
Mhm.
I've taken weeks off, and just recently I was in Peru in the Amazon on a plant medicine dieta, and I was offline for 3 weeks, and no one knew. Like, you think people will know, but they don't notice shit. Like, they're all being bombarded with all this
Everyone
external
else's
stimuli.
stuff.
Right.
And their own stuff.
Right. And so
Yeah.
give yourself that gift of going
Mhm.
offline, whether you take a long break or whether you start implementing like regular breaks in your everyday life so that you have these opportunities to really hone in on your own voice.
And I think once you take that break, even like, let's say 2 weeks, okay?
Right.
That first week, once you're off, you're going to have that clarity to be able to come up with the new boundaries and the
For
new
sure.
structures and the new implementations. I mean, that's a huge part of my poly purpose. Yes, I'm going to write my book, but it's also so I can, again, reassess, and I'm using the Mercury retrograde to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the other thing. You can work with the cosmos and these shifts of planets and what have you to
Mm-hmm.
work with us. And that's a huge part of what I teach in my programs. It's like work with the cosmos, because these are all tools to help
Mm-hmm.
us be of service. And so I just think it's really important for all of us to understand that it's not the end of the world if you are finding yourself trapped. It's just you having that aha of like, whoa, I need to reevaluate something right here, right now. And then
Right.
taking that action. And like you said, your audience will actually thank you when
Mm-hmm.
you come back than from giving them like half-assed content and material from when you were stuck or trapped.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to tell me in my DMs, like, wow, your content since you got back from Peru is fire. Or like, I'm really connecting to your content since you got back from Peru. And it's, yeah, every time I take breaks and I
I'm
have
the same.
it's like amazing. And I build them into my year. Like every year on my
Mm-hmm.
birthday, I take a break. Every year at the end of the year, I take a
Mm-hmm.
break. I take breaks on the weekends. I take breaks on in the evenings. I take breaks in the mornings. Like there's are breaks built into every single day of my life, as well as through the calendar year for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Because we, it, you know, one of the biggest things I hear people say who are on the purpose driven path is like, I can't find my voice. I can't find my unique voice. I don't know what my message is. And maybe that's you, the listener, maybe that's you. And my message to you is you can't find it because you're too busy consuming other people's voices and other people's messages. So the
Mm-hmm.
only way that you're going to connect to your own unique voice, your own unique gifts, your own unique message is by tuning everyone else out and tuning into you.
Ah, yes. That's why I'm so excited for my Bali trip. But I would love to talk about, because and this is the other thing that's been really fascinating about my podcast. Pretty much every episode I've had, every guest I have is someone that's active in the plant medicine journey path.
Mm-hmm.
And you were just talking about how you did a 14-day dieta
Mm-hmm.
in Peru. And so as someone who, because plant medicines have revolutionized my life too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very open about it. And a lot of people are like seeing me as like, reaching out to me like, oh my God, I just had my first plant medicine ceremony this weekend. And I thought of you. It's really amazing to see how many of us that have been on this path, and I think a lot of us that were abusing medicines and stuff before, because I still believe MDMA is a powerful medicine. Cocaine, not so much, but definitely like MDMA can be. I mean, the fact that it's on phase 4 right now to be legalized for PTSD for vets. I think that we had kind of like an awareness that we would be on a plant medicine path years ago. I would just love to hear how your journey with plant medicines have helped you reclaim your truth and your power and allowing you to be of service from that space.
Yeah. For me, my plant medicine journey started December 2018. And since then, I mean, it's been like 15 IS ceremonies, 5 sits with combo. I've dieted Bomansana and Noyarao. I've also had the plant medicine dieta in Peru. It's really for me a very deep, long relationship with grandmother medicine that I'm in. And I went on this route. I'd heard the call, I'd felt the call, probably at least a year and a half before I went in. I wasn't ready. I was still really scared of my addiction.
Mm.
And so I needed to sit with that for a bit. And then in December 2018, I was ready because I felt like Western medicine wasn't working. It was failing me. I was dealing with something called PMDD, which was really debilitating. And half the month, every month, I had brain fog, memory loss, extreme depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety so severe it would wake me up in the middle of the night. Like, it was debilitating. And I went to plant medicine because I just knew that this would help. And through that journey, I healed what the Western medicine world said I couldn't heal, but so much more. Like, on a physical level, my IBS has healed, my anxiety, PMDD gone, like all of those symptoms with it, the brain fog, the memory loss, all of that gone.
Wow.
And it's also supported me greatly, me specifically, for self-trust, learning how to trust myself. I realized that a lot of my behavioral patterns stemmed from a lack of self-trust, because as a child, I wasn't given the opportunity to trust myself. Again, like not being able to speak my truth and speak my voice. And it's just like allowed me to humble myself, I think is a good way to put it. Really humble myself to the and hold great reverence to the plants. Like, there's so much more out there than just us.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more out there. And I believe that the plants are making their way around the world now at this point in time because they have an ancient technology that they're here to serve us. I also believe that there's a massive lack of integrity in the plant medicine space.
Oh,
And
yes.
that's like a whole other, I could talk for like 4 hours on that shit. So I just have a great reverence to the plant medicine world and the plant medicine space. And I'm very grateful to be able to work with the plants in this way. And yeah, I just continue to open up and learn more about myself every time I sit with the medicine.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, have had very similar experiences. After I was struck by lightning and my nervous system was shot, the plant medicine really helped me realign my nervous system
Mm-hmm.
because I was in a constant state of fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
The paranoia, the psychosis, the PTSD, all of that really was debilitating for me as
Mm-hmm.
well. And I feel like I have a responsibility to help keep the integrity of the plant medicine journey because there are a lot of people abusing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for us to say that and to speak up on that and not
Mm-hmm.
bypass it,
Yes.
because it's a reverence that needs to be respected.
Yes. Can we just say, like, you cannot be a certified shaman. Like,
Mm-hmm.
stop this shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're fucking up with one of the greatest, most ancient technologies in our world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you, to our listeners, like, if you feel the call, because you do, it's a call, like, you'll
You'll
know,
know.
you'll know.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel the call, like, really do your due diligence in researching who you choose to sit with.
Mm-hmm.
Know their background. How long have they sat with the medicine prior to practicing? Who did they seek permission from? What lineage did they seek permission from? Where did they get the medicine from? What form is the medicine in? Like, there's a lot of questions you get to ask
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of abuse in
Yeah.
the space.
Yeah, because I would definitely say the people that I sat with for my ayahuasca ceremony, I would never sit with them again.
Oh, I've had a ceremony like that before.
And
And there's another group that, like, recently I'm starting to see, oh, okay, I'm not going to sit with them again. And right now I'm
yeah,
very tight with my Peru group because he sat with the medicine for a decade, studying under a Shipibo maestro who gave him permission, and had only started practicing after 10 years of dieting over 2,000 times with ayahuasca. And for me, it's like, and he still sees himself as a student, you know. And for me, that's the thing. It's like, I think a lot of people get drawn into the neo-shamanism because they see it as power. We see this in the coaching industry too, FYI. There's a
That's what I'm
direct
saying.
link,
That's what I'm
right?
saying. Everything's
It's all linked.
Yes.
It's like people take it as power, like, I can transform you.
Yes.
Like, no, you can't. Whether it's
Yes.
through ayahuasca or through coaching, you are not doing the transformation. If you think you're doing that, you are disempowering your clients.
Totally.
Okay? This is about empowering them. Anytime a client comes to me and says, you changed my life, I always say back to them, no, you did that. I didn't do that. I was a guide. I was a mirror for you, but you did that.
I shared that in a post the other day.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's to say, I totally hear you. It's like, no,
it's a massive lack of integrity.
Yeah. And it's if you're someone that tells your coach that, you're actually disempowering yourself. But no, when I sat in ceremony, I sat with them twice with this couple, and I sat across from them because I was always one to help hold space with it, which was really interesting because that's something that I've had to also allow myself to receive, because I'm always like the space holder. But the medicine told me, like, strike one, like the medicine said, this is not the people. But it got me the invitation to like work with the medicine and connect with the energy. But like, I really didn't connect with. It was pretty much me and the energy of Aya herself, you know, not through the shaman. And it was like, strike two, do not do this again. And I got offered another time to sit with them. And I was like, I think I'm going to sit this one out. Yeah. You know, and that took, you know, that was a really important thing for me to also recognize is the integrity of the people that I work with. Yes. And that I can only see that if I have integrity within myself.
Exactly. When we lack integrity, we don't see it in others. But when we stand in integrity, and have integrity with everything that we do, we can spot it like 10,000 miles away.
Yeah. And that your bullshit meter is so strong. And so the last people I sat with the peyote ceremony, it was this woman from Brazil and her husband's from Mexico. And it was for my friend's birthday, and we did a peyote ceremony, and it was so powerful. My whole intention was to mature my inner child. And from that, and I think you have to also remember, if you do a plant medicine ceremony, the journey doesn't end as soon as that container's closed.
Yep. Yes.
There's still a process after.
The deconstruction begins after.
Yes, because I sat in a peyote ceremony. I felt so clear. Everyone was sending me messages like, your eyes are so clear. You feel so connected. And I was like, I'm in my truth right now. And I had 3 weeks of the most challenging experiences that I've had since I was abusing MDMA and got struck by lightning and had a difficult LSD trip. I haven't felt that low since I had the difficult LSD trip, 2012. Right. And I was like, oh, something's off. My Lakshmi statue shattered. Wow. Fell off my desk. Shattered. And ever since Lakshmi shattered, I felt she caught something so strong for me, you know, that I'm bringing her head with me to Bali, and I'm throwing it into the ocean in Bali. And the other pieces of her, I've been like lotus flowers I buried at my childhood, my grandparents' chair, like the house I grew up in. I buried the lotus there right before, like 30 minutes before escrow closed. Day after my peyote ceremony, I went to my childhood house, I cleared it and got rid of, and any connection I still had of trauma, cleared it out. I mean, when you're doing plant medicines, and I'm sharing this because when you're doing plant medicines, this isn't basic bitch work. Like it's not about diving into it because everyone else is doing it. It's about you doing it to really reclaim your power and to really step into your purpose and why. Well,
also reclaim your power and do something with your power. Because I think a lot of people go into plant medicine for the answers. They're like, okay, let me just do this because ayahuasca is going to give the answer. And it's like, no, you can actually sit in an entire ceremony and actually experience nothing. Like I've had a ceremony where I experienced nothing. And you can also get ceremonies where the medicine kicks your ass. And it's about you taking the insights that you gain and doing something with it. Integration is a thing.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. And it's in plant medicine and without plant medicine. You know, like if you read a book, are you going to actually integrate what you learned? If you listen to a podcast, if you listen to this podcast, what are you going to integrate after this? Like, what are you going to do about it? Right? You got an insight from listening to this. Now, what are you going to do about it? Right? That's the piece, and that's the empowerment piece, and that's the one piece that I think a lot of people miss. But it's the piece that keeps you in integrity with yourself, because when you actually start to implement and integrate what you're learning, you are going to feel so much better about yourself because you feel like you're remaining in integrity with yourself. And that is fucking powerful. And until I started doing that, I didn't realize how many ways I was not in integrity with who I was. It wasn't until I started doing that and keeping these commitments and being devoted to my integration that I started to realize, wow, there's a lot of different ways where I wasn't in integrity with myself. No wonder I felt like shit.
Yeah, it's like I said, I just feel like it's a huge non-negotiable.
Yep.
If you are here to be of service, that integrity and that integration. So even if you think about it, like in Kundalini yoga, when that Kundalini yoga energy rises up, that's the awakening. But and that's the masculine energy. But the feminine energy is the integration. That's the embodiment. How are you going to embody what you just learned?
Yeah, it's not just about doing the things.
Consuming.
No, it's about being it.
But I think that's so part of American culture.
Totally.
It's so part of American culture. Yeah, it's so part of Western state of mind, but especially in America. And we have so much overstimulation now. But again, I think it's so important for us to understand and to streamline our focus and our energy if you want to execute the mission that you've set out to do, and you want to be in integrity and serve with integrity.
Yes, 100%.
100%. So I can talk with you all day, but I want to wrap up with some lightning round questions.
Okay.
What does sovereignty mean to you?
I get an image. So I'm going to describe the image.
Okay.
It's like I get an image of me standing fully in my power with my eyes closed and my hands open.
I see that. I love that. What would you say was the one book that really revolutionized your life?
God, I hate this question because there wasn't a book that revolutionized my life. I would say one of the books that I really loved was The Four Agreements. I read that very early on in my journey because I realized that those were all four agreements that I wasn't making with myself. And so that really provided like a good pathway for me to begin.
I love that. Yeah, that was definitely one of mine too.
Yeah.
What would you say to younger Ruby?
Keep showing up. Keep showing up for you.
And where can we find more of you?
I'm all over the interweb, every social media network. I am Ruby. So that's at I am Ruby or / I am Ruby. And I also, because I value connection, you can also text me. Yes. So if you listen to this podcast episode, I want to hear from you. I actually want to hear your biggest insight from this episode. So text me your biggest insight at 1-781-336-0160 and make sure you quote the podcast itself. So I know what you're talking about.
Nice execution. And
and I have a podcast. Hello. I always forget that part. I have a podcast. It's called Today's Thought Leader. And I also, just like I mentioned earlier, I only interview people that I love. So check it out.
Yes. Amazing. And what last little nugget of wisdom would you want to share with whoever's listening?
foundation of everything that you build is yourself. And so the biggest devotion that you hold must be towards yourself. It must be you being devoted to your personal growth, your spiritual growth, your expansion, to facing your shadows, to doing the work, to getting dirty, to getting messy. Because from that place, that's when you start to really lead with purpose.
Oh, yes,
Mhm.
that was beautiful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ruby, for being on here and going deep and real with me on this conversation. And I'm sure there's so many nuggets that you all can really take away from this episode. This was like one of the most powerful ones that you've heard.
Mm.
I can tell. I know. This has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you, Ruby, for sharing your medicine and for taking the time to be in your integrity and to share from that space of wholehearted compassion and connection.
Yeah, Sabrina, thank you so much for creating this space for us, for me to do so.
Yes, thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be hearing more of you soon. Take care.